Yeah, namaste. Good morning to all of you. I'm always delighted to be a part of AG Patil Institute and family. So this is one more occasion to share some inputs that I have gathered on blended learning concepts. Of course, the word blended has or is gathering a lot of glamour nowadays. Possibly in an pandemic situation like this, everyone is in search of some medicine for their physical protection as well as professional protection. Possibly blended learning is coming out as a protection against their professional hazards for a teacher, maybe as a panacea. Panacea means a medicine that works for all diseases. Unfortunately, teaching and learning is full of diseases. As we can see, the expected outcomes and employability of the children when they pass out of the campuses is concerned. Don't take my word diseases in a wrong way. In a lighter vein, I just wanted to propose this word in view of current pandemic situation wherein everyone is afraid of catching the disease. And possibly, if I can use this metaphor, entire human body is full of diseases, full of viruses which are growing within our body. Likewise, every institute is also full of some endemic diseases which have crept in by way of its birth or design at the birth. But we are striving hard to give services to the needy so that these needy people, especially students and their parents, who are always hoping on our endeavor to make their child a successful citizen for this nation by way of building a career for himself or herself. But is it really happening? Of course, let us not point our fingers to anyone, including management and administrators. That we can always do, and we keep often doing it. But can we ask this question to us as a teacher? What is my role in making this teaching and learning effective to the extent that the student goes out with a degree which is not that important, but he feels himself competent to face any challenges of the community that is lying ahead. Actually, the community itself is looking at him. In what way? Looking at him as a prospective leader who will be able to solve some of their problems, alleviate some of their difficulties, so that entire community who is not privy to such kind of education, who is rather deprived of many education opportunities, is looking at your children, that these fellows will come to their rescue to alleviate some of their deprivations and make their life little comfortable. What's really happening with our child who is going out? Is it the same way child is feeling, the way society is expecting, the way the parents are investing, the way the teachers are with their positive framework, positive mindset, contributing to the entire exercise, the way administrators and management are pouring their life energies, including money, to make this a joyful or a pious activity? If you ask this question to yourself, you will get the answer. I think the answer is not strict yes. Had it been a strict yes, we would have been a changed community. And therefore, I feel we need to go at the root of the problem. Root of the problem means what? What is actually happening in the classroom? Today, we are likely to get introduced to a new concept, which is known as blended learning. What is this blended learning? Whether blended is important or learning is important. And what is this blend which is coming with? When we are having a classroom teaching, what are we going to blend it with? So every one of us are aware, by way of the title of today's lecture and the theme for today's workshop, that we need to go towards technology intervention to blend our teaching or teaching and learning. I think everyone is clear about that. So whether technology can work as a panacea for all the diseases that we have got, to make the children employable, to make the education relevant and appropriate, need-based and demand-driven. Now, this is a question a teacher has to ask. I strongly appeal, before we get introduced to the fancy concepts like blended learning, we need to introspectively ask this concept, ask this question to ourselves, whether it is really possible to use a technology to meet the educational outcomes which were not possible to meet hitherto for last so many years of our existence. Of course, you yourself can answer this question. The answer to this question, as you are all aware, unless we people take it to heart to make this activity a really a outcome based, joyous, and beyond that, a child going out with a strong character to face the evils and challenges of this community and society, this is not going to happen. And therefore, in my opinion, what is that is hampering to meet the desired outcomes? See, I always tell a story. Possibly it is about Edison. Edison has largest number of patents in his name. And he had a factory. It is said that one day the factory gets burnt totally. And all the relatives and friends feel sorry about this fellow Edison and they want to console him. They reach out to him near the factory side. This fellow Edison is sitting on an armchair, a rocking armchair, and trying to read a book comfortably, quietly, calmly. Everyone is surprised. They ask Edison, how is that, Edison? You can be so calm when your whole factory, a big factory, is turning into the ashes. Edison says to them, it is good that it got burnt, because I was always thinking so many mistakes I have committed while constructing it, I cannot undo them. Now I have a chance. God has given me a chance by burning my entire factory, so that when I rebuild it, I will not have those errors and mistakes which were crept in at the design level. I think the message is loud and clear. When any institute gets designed and developed, when any institute at its inception starts with some motivation, goal, objectives, and vision, by virtue of the community, the local needs, local constraints, there are some infirmities which might have crept in the institutes. If you look at the global standards, if you look at the national standards, if you look at the industry expectations, if you look at the council's expectations, everywhere you will find there are gaps. It is but natural. So in my opinion, the time has come, due to this pandemic, to burn all those setup and create a new structure. And this new structure, I will not call it as a infrastructure, but I will be more happy to call it as a mental infrastructure, to create a structure in the mindset of the people, so that we can do a teaching and learning in an altogether different way. Might be a Edison gets a rebirth for his own factory. If you all of you are prepared, let us talk about the major constraint or Edison's error in our education system. In my opinion, it is, as the current slide is showing, in our education system, learning time is constant. This is one of the catastrophic errors which I always see when we go to classroom as a teacher, or when we see any student trying to strive hard to develop himself to meet the standards set by your curriculum, set by your process for the degree which he is trying to aspire for. Therefore, if you look at today's education system, time is constant where students' learning is variable. That means we give a fixed time for any learning. How is that every student in your classroom, for them, this much time will be sufficient? Some of them may be slow learners. Maybe few of them, they cannot think of the learning this kind of concept because they don't have any prerequisite. It can so happen, for which you are not responsible. Who is responsible? Earlier system is responsible. What is the earlier system? Schooling is responsible. When you go to schools, which I often do, I ask them, why is that you give 20 out of 20 to every student in the practical examination when they pass out their 12th standard, when they have not done any experiment throughout their year? They say this is required because our competitors are giving. If you go to their laboratories, our laboratories are empty. No one even sweeps the laboratories. Mostly, this is the picture I have seen in my state. When I was a student, we used to conduct experiments. We used to get some weightage out of relationship, out of love, out of care from the teachers and the assistants. But we used to work to conduct the experiment, to draw the readings, to draw the inferences, and then they prove that we have done it well. And that is how we were used to handling the laboratory equipments. Now, today, if a student is getting, when he is clearing 12th standard examination, 20 out of 20 in chemistry examination, practical examination, and when the child is reaching to your chemistry labs and trying to do an experiment on titration, and you ask him to fetch a whatever equipment that is required, pipette or burette, he doesn't know how it looks like. He doesn't know how to hold it. When you ask him to hold it properly, he holds it other way around, the upside down. You laugh at him. Who should be laughed at? A person who should be laughed at, if at all, is the education system which has developed him like that. What I'm trying to tell you is that the child is not prepared by way of prerequisites to meet the standards of education that you are trying to expect and fetch out of him from the current session. So naturally, this is because when you are holding time as a constant, I think it's a time, and it's an appropriate time, and it's a boon by way of such a kind of pandemic and lockdown, that we shift our process of teaching and learning from the time-based, time as a constant situation, to a mastery-based learning. We don't clear the student unless he masters a concept. We slowly, it is not easy, and it may not happen very fast, to shift his attention from the marks to the competencies. So in a mastery-based learning system, time becomes a variable and students' learning becomes a constant. Now, I'm not trying to give you a ready-made solution. I'm just trying to make you think whether it is possible. Now, as a teacher, I know you will point your fingers to your head of the department. If I ask head of the department, he will point his fingers to somebody like principal. If I ask principal, he will say that I am bound by university rules and regulations and laws within the ambit of councils, AICTE's regulations. All those things will come up. But when you are a teacher, you are in charge of the subject. At least you have around 28 to 32 hours in your hand when you go to classrooms. And within those 28 to 30 hours of classroom session, my question to you as a teacher is, does your HOD come to your classroom? Does your principal come to your classroom for any intervention? Possibly not. Why? Because you are autonomous in that classroom setup. No one can enter in the classroom. Mostly. You have been given total freedom. Why? Because it is your business to meet the outcomes what have been designed by the system by way of curriculum, by way of course outcomes, by way of program outcomes, by way of learning outcomes or lesson plans. It is entirely your prerogative how to deliver to the children. My question to you is, can you rethink on these delivery methods? Can you come out of time as a constant method to mastery based learning? Now there are challenges. I know what's going on in your mind. There are huge challenges because you know your children. They are big in number one. Number two, they have got diverse learning needs. Number three, their learning styles are different. And you are the only one who is supposed to address this entire herd of children who is at your command. So it is best way to make time as a constant and give them some prescriptive lecture at the end of which you are satisfied that you have taught, students have satisfied, they have got attendance. What happens to learning is God's business. But as far as outcomes is concerned, students have mastered the art of clearing the examinations to fetch the marks. For them, marks are the outcomes because that's what parents asks. Likewise, semester after semester, 4 years have gone. Child gets a degree, goes out in the society, tries to fetch a job. Job wala asks him few questions, whether you know it, whether you know this, can you handle Excel sheet? Can you be a good team member? Have you done some exemplary work in organization skills? How you are good at oral communication in English? Are you good at written communication? Do you have skills in body language? The fellow doesn't know that this was expected out of him for last 4 years. And he is totally aghast in the sense he is nowhere and he feels that he is directionless even after he has a very precious paper in his hand, a degree given by university. This is the state of affairs. Ken Robinson calls it as a classical case of academic inflation. What happens when there is economic inflation? The value of money goes down. You have more money in pocket, but you can buy less. Likewise, you have more degrees in pocket, but you can buy less. Yeah. Now let us start upfront with the question in our mind. What is blended learning? Hopefully now everyone is able to see the slide. A classical definition of blended learning is blended learning is a formal education program in which a student learns at least in part through online learning with some element of student control over time, place, path and pace. And out of remaining at least some part in a supervised brick and mortar location away from home. I think different parts of this definition are very clear. The concepts are very loud. All of you must have started at your institute to just do something in this part of education, that is blended learning. And what is mostly started? Mostly people have started working on technology. That means they feel if they bring proper technology, somebody is suggesting go to seminar, somebody is suggesting go to meeting, somebody is suggesting Zoom, somebody is suggesting Microsoft Teams, somebody wants something else like Google Meet. And depending upon the flavors available, there are people in the institutes who are trying to vie with each other, which tool is better. They are trying out various options. Somebody is trying out various apps of Google Teams, whether Moodle can be integrated with Google Teams, sorry, Microsoft Teams, whether I can have Slate or some kind of whiteboard installed, which can be integrated with Microsoft Teams or something like that, so that I simulate exactly the same thing which I do in the classroom using technology for my children. The entire efforts which I see in many institutes which are happening today in view of this pandemic are in blended learning by way of implementation of technology. Everyone wants to go for a camera, some kind of audio mechanism, some kind of tripods, or maybe some laptops, then some good bandwidth, maybe some 100, or I don't know how many participants are there in today's session. Now, just now I see around maybe 109 participants. Yeah, it's a good crowd. Thank you so much. But how many of them are alert? Some of them must have started my session on mobile phone. At the same time, they must be cooking something in their kitchen. Maybe we don't know, but some of them must be sitting in their bedrooms or maybe bathrooms. We don't know. If this is happening with us, can you imagine this can happen with our children also? And if at all I am not alert for an important concept which is being introduced, because I am multitasking, I am multiplexing, we may get lost as far as learning is concerned. And what we are thinking, blended learning is a panacea for all the elements of the education. So this is the first point a teacher needs to catch. As far as he needs, if at all he needs to address the gaps in teaching and learning, there are gaps in teaching and learning in the classroom, and we have demonstrated that gap in our earlier slide, wherein we said that learning time is a constant, is the biggest gap. But now, due to blended learning, we can do something in this category, in the sense that we can bridge this gap where time does not remain a constant. And therefore, I have given a simple definition of blended learning. It will include modalities for every student learning path for a subject are connected to provide integrated learning experience. So the second part of the definition is a little tricky, in the sense that it covers many parts related to learning and teaching. We will not focus on those parts, but we will try to elaborate those parts in the subsequent slides. But there are some differential advantages of blended learning as well. What are the disadvantages? What is the motivation for using blended learning? Motivation for using blended learning is we will come out of our major gap of education where time was a constant, because classroom session was constant, because number of sessions were constant, because we have assumed that everyone comes with a learnability in their mind, because every student has desired prerequisites to take this course, which may not be a reality. So that was the motivation for blended learning. Then what are the disadvantages? Disadvantages is that it is unsupervised. We don't have control over child's attention. Already the attention span of a child is not more than 12 to 19 minutes when he is in the classroom. But he is autonomous. At home he is autonomous. When he is autonomous, how to ensure that his attention span remains to at least 12 to 19 seconds when we are delivering him teaching in an online mode? That is the biggest challenge of blended learning. That is the biggest laughter side, or we can say the disadvantage of the blended learning. But what are the differential advantages? If you look at this slide, it will talk about the differential advantages. That is, one of the differential advantages, it is an emerging science. It is not established itself. There is very less research happened so far. A benchmark research which will prove that blended learning is useful in such and such category and to such and such level, whether it is useful in K-12 or 12 science, whether it is useful in pre-primary, whether it is useful in middle school, whether it is useful in research programs or master's programs or bachelor's program. A relevant data is still not available. I think this is an advantage. Why? Because we can always experiment. Every teacher becomes autonomous in its thinking to employ his own mental model, what he thinks is correct in a blended learning approach. In its simplest form, we know blended learning, it's part of the formal education system where at least some part is through the online learning. Now, when I say online learning, there becomes a plethora of disadvantages creeping in: attention span, network bandwidth, quality of reception, and assumption that the student wants to learn. All these issues come up. So when you say a child later on that this particular thing I have taught in the classroom, on your face he can say, but sir, I have not understood. You will ask him why. He will say that the bandwidth was not proper. I was not able to listen to you properly. So looking at this kind of issues, we need to also understand what are the advantages. Advantages is that I can always experiment. Because in the early part of the game, you are the crusader, you are the rule maker. Today, the rules are still evolving. Therefore, the last part I purposefully highlighted in this slide, and that is important to all of you. Don't look at the technology as a panacea to solve all your challenges by way of a new model which we are terming as a blended learning approach to make teaching easier and to make learning happen. Not possible. Unless you as a teacher convert yourself as a simple human being with human needs in the role of leadership, then only it is possible. Now, what is that? This particular issue we are going to address in today's session slowly till the end. What do you mean by being a human being, and what is the role of leadership? There is another definition coming up, that is high quality blended learning. High quality blended learning means the quality approach which we have just now discussed, how to ensure. Now again, the word high quality doesn't have any relation with the kind of bandwidth that you are using, the kind of network connection that you are having, the kind of technology that you are using, the kind of equipment that you are having. It has no bearing on technology. High quality blended learning means high quality learning in a blended mode. So where we are having focus not on technology again, but on learning. So there are 4 parts of high quality blended learning. Number 1, it has to be personalized. Now, just think over each of this part, because we are going to visit this part again and again in this session. And these are real challenges of a teacher when you are now going to address your student group afresh in a new way, in a new mood, and in a new mode. Your teaching has to means what? Your teaching you have to design which will look after the needs and gaps of every student. The learning plan is personalized for each learner. There is a spelling mistake here. So it is your duty that you create a learning plan which is personalized for every children. I think there was a session out of this workshop for learning styles also. So every child which is coming to you has a different learning style. You also have your own learning style. When you yourself have your own learning style, you can also expect that a child is can be auditory learner, sometimes he is a visual learner, sometimes he is a kinesthetic learner, sometimes he is a intuitive learner, sometimes he is a local learner, sometimes he is a global learner. So you need to understand that the children which are sitting in front of you have varieties in terms of their learning style. So better to understand their learning styles. I strongly suggest you refer to Richard Felder's learning style questionnaire to assess your own learning styles. If you search on internet, Google, you may get a proper learning style. Else I will share my resource with the organizers. They in turn will try to make them reach to you. So try to assess yourself, your own learning style. And maybe if time permits, when the students assemble in a first session for you, wherever they are, whether online or offline, you try to conduct this exercise for them. Try to find out who is what kind of learner, what is dominant learnability action that a child has. So if you profile them like that, then you can understand that your lesson plan you need to design. Your first session, as I understand, was more related to learning and assessment design by Dr. Patwardhan of IIT Bombay. And in that, you must have learned all the nuances of Bloom's taxonomy, assessment criteria design, and all those things. And when you design that, you should keep in mind that whatever level of Bloom's taxonomy that I'm addressing to, I need to also look at the learning styles of a child. Therefore, my lesson plan will have mix of deliveries for each style of a learner. For a kinesthetic learner, I may have something by way of project-based learning. For a global learner, I can give you the larger goal, will not talk anything else in terms of localized learning steps. For a local learner, I can have a stepwise learning plan so that he needs to only follow the learning plan step by step in a pedestal fashion so that ultimate goal is reached when he reaches at the end. For a visual learner, maybe I can provide some visual learning inputs by way of some YouTube videos or my own videos by way of this blended learning approach and so on. And as such, for auditory learners, you were the expert. At least everyone thinks that he is the expert because he always uses auditory learning style of the children to convey the message of teaching that he has and does it in a classroom session. So the first message is very clear. You need to find out the gaps of learning and needs of learning to personalize learning in every learner. I will again repeat, high quality blended learning does not have any relation to the quality of technology that we are using. It has everything to do with you being a human being, your needs as a human being, child being a human being, child's needs as a human being, and in this path comes learning, which you think is important. Child doesn't think. For child, marks are important. For child, ultimate degree is important. If you give him on the first day, he will be the most happy person. You are the only impediment in the last degree paper that he is likely to get, because you design the signpost and you tell him that to reach the signpost you need to work this much. Second part of high quality blended learning is mastery based. Mastery based means the student will move ahead in the subject only after he has mastered a concept, not after he has consumed a time frame, a session time, a week's time, maybe a 12 hours, maybe 8 hours for one unit. After 8 hours are over, maybe in 2 weeks time, unit is over. That means it is assumed that everyone has mastered the concept. Please come out of this thinking. Try to segregate the students whether they have mastered this concept or not, and ask them to progress based upon their mastery. So it is a part of mastery based or competency based education, where you design, what is your role as a teacher? You design the testing interventions based upon the needs of the student. Only when students say I am ready, you test them. Otherwise you don't test them. You try to monitor them, you counsel with them, you facilitate the learning for them, and by way of doing this entire gamut of activities, you also ensure whether the child is learning or he is not learning. Once you are learning, once you ensure that he is learning, 50 to 60% of what you call in Mrs. Patwardhan's assessment design part in way of formative assessment is already taken care of. Only a small part, maybe 20%, 25% part, you keep it aside as a part of summative assessment. So the time has come now in the mastery based education to reduce your summative assessment part and to increase your formative assessment part. Third pillar of high quality blended learning is high expectations for the students. Students themselves should be able to set the standards and expectations for themselves, in the sense that they should be able to clearly define, spell out their own standards based upon their own prerequisites of knowledge and skills and experience, so that they can carve out a career for them in near future. Entire game is being played for their career, but they are not aware. If you look at children who are coming to A.J. Patil Institute, especially from the low strata of society, middle class, maybe girls, boys, if you ask them, they know that they want to get a degree. What after degree, they do not know. Possibly they will tell that we will apply for a job. What kind of job they want to apply for, they do not know. Why? Because they have not been trained to set the clear standards based upon their personal needs, their personalities, their character strengths, their knowledge and skills and prerequisites that they have gathered so far. Somebody is weak in mathematics. We are asking him to do M1, M2, M3 in Maharashtra, sometimes till M6. And fellow gets poorer performance in this mathematics. For him, it becomes a big demon. That means we need to find out whether we can retrofit our curriculum plan to match with the standards and expectations of the child which he has set for himself. Naturally, when I am making such kind of statement, there must be a great mental activity going on in your minds. How to do this? Whether it is really possible. I'm not giving you a prescription. I'm just telling you, going back to my earlier slide, that there are differential advantages. What are the differential advantages? A teacher being already autonomous can be more autonomous to experiment with what is a possibility in a blended learning. That's all. How it is to be done, I don't know. Or I do not want to be prescriptive. I can be suggestive. But what is expected, what are the benchmarks, what is called as high quality blended learning, it should include this. What is that? There are 4 parts. What are those 4 parts? Number 1, it should be personalized. Who should do it? It is teacher's lookout. Teacher may point the fingers at somebody else. Then the person who is being pointed finger at should be facilitated. You give him total freedom or sufficient freedom or required freedom to experiment with what he thinks is a personalized education for his subject. And then we will look for the performances, maybe intermittent performances, whether he is being successful or not. Likewise, he should be given freedom for being mastery based teacher. That means students are owning, students are controlling their learning process, not the teachers. We will try to elaborate these concepts more in coming slides. 4th part is student ownerships. Students are equipped with skills so that they can manage their own learning. The 3rd and 4th part is extremely difficult as of today's situation is concerned, in the sense that we need to train students in groups, by counseling or otherwise, maybe through again a blended learning approach, that this is important in life. You need to get trained on setting the goals for your career, for your life as a human being. Then only there is a point of converting you to a professional. How to convert you to a professional? We will try to have all those ingredients in our education system and the process by which this education is being given to you. As far as student ownership is concerned, again, there is a spelling mistake here. We need to work in this part as it is very challenging. Extremely challenging part is student ownership. If your institute is situated in Mofussil areas, village-like areas, this becomes more challenging part, because students come there as a herd. Why? Because they have gone to schools as a herd. Why? Because they have entered in the school system from their parents just because it's a part of their life. They do not know why they are going to school. They do not know what is to be done by the skills that they are trying to acquire in the schools by way of their curriculum. So there are gaps which are created at every stage of the education system, and therefore this particular creating student ownership in the professional colleges is the first step to create a professional amongst themselves. I would like to remind you of a famous definition of professionalism or professional by Subrata Bagchi, wherein he says, a professional is the one who does his job himself unsupervised and later on certify that the job was done satisfactorily. I will highly recommend all of you to read that book by name The Professional by Subrata Bagchi. If you cannot own the book, you can search it on Google Books. Possibly you will be able to get one copy on the Google Books in PDF format. Those whose learning style is not by way of reading, I will appeal strongly to them, at least read the first chapter. The name of the chapter is Burial of Dead, in which it's a great eye-opener for all of us, how to convert ourselves as a professional. And therefore, if we want to create a ownership amongst the student as far as learning is concerned, unless ownership is created among the student, it is not possible to enter into the mastery based education. Entire education, entire process can turn out to be a possibly a fiasco with no outcomes being met, because students are at home, you are at your home, you have designed something which are fancy PowerPoints which are being shown to the students, your voice is being heard, mercy to the network bandwidth issues which are being taken care of or not. Looking at the bandwidth that they have, if he is from poor family, his device may not be that good, his network quality may not be that good. Looking at all these challenges, it is you as a teacher who is going to design this aspect for this intervention for the child. But prerequisite for this is that train him to own the learning. Student ownership is most important. If you look at the second point in this slide, mostly students do not want to know this due to their schedule, due to their test, due to their assessments for the goals of marks. For them, who is the God? From their first standard, from their KG class, God is a mark. Out of 100 marks, maximum I need to get. This is how parents have convinced them. This is how peer group looks at them. This is how education system has been designed. We need to make extra effort to take them out of this mark flurry and focus them on actual learning, actual competencies. It's a Herculean task. It's a difficult task for which I strongly appeal to all the principals who are listening this, for all the administrators and management, that invest at least 10% of your energies and time in conducting sessions on how to do this, or train your entire faculty on how to guide students to develop their plans of 4 year career plans, professional plans, plans as a human being to lead a happy and fulfilled life. All these parts are extremely important. This is a need for the hour. Earlier it was not there, but interactivity was there. Student used to come in the campus, stay in the campus for minimum 5 to 7 hours. Lot of interactivity was there, interaction was there, and therefore students were able to think over it directly or indirectly, looking at their role models, looking at what is happening with their seniors. Now these interventions are going to get lesser and lesser, and therefore it is the duty of a teacher to design these interventions. They do not want to know what it means to prepare for a career. This is a problem with a student. They do not bother as they are not oriented or they are engrossed in other activities, which are fun activities, which are joyful activities. They are required. Don't underestimate the power of fun activities or joyful activities in building a character. We are going to come to that in the later part of this. Blended learning is all about learning and not about knowledge. I think we have discussed this, but you should keep in mind, never look at I am seeing meetings of online meetings are being conducted of premier institutes. Some of the meetings are happening in my home. And in most of the meetings, people talk about technology, technology, and technology. No one talks about student engagement. No one talks about their ownership. No one talks about mastery-based education. If this is not happening, then I think learning, otherwise also it was not happening, and now also it will not happen. We are creating another Edison's factory as far as our education is concerned. But still, though blended learning is not all about technology, there is a crucial role, very, very crucial role, which is being played by the technology itself. Why? Because possibly, say, I'm going on live. A.G. Patil Institute is making efforts to make my session to go on live. Possibly they will store my session. Possibly they will share my session. What's happening? When they are sharing my session, some of the slides you must have missed because of your attention plan, or somebody, because of your attention span, or somebody was cooking in the kitchen. They have diverted their mind. Then they can come back to my slide and try to understand what I wanted to say on that particular slide. This is the power of technology. I cannot fast forward my teacher. I cannot reverse him back. I cannot stop him if I get bored when he's in the classroom, but I can do that. That is the power of technology. Blended learning itself is possible because of technology. Otherwise, without technology, blended learning has no meaning. What blended learning otherwise used to be, we are going to see in the subsequent slide. Another thing is that blended learning is scalable. A.G. Patil Institute would not have allowed 109 participants to enter into their campus for this 5-day training program because of course, financial and budgetary constraints, space constraints, whatever it is. But today, more than 100 trainees are participating in this training program just because of course, the technology. These are the advantages of technology. It becomes financially viable because the fees goes down. There is no travel cost. There is no staying cost. There is no remuneration cost, possibly heavy remuneration cost to the resource persons. The entire cost can be optimized. So this is the way every institute should think of promoting their training activities and promoting their teaching activities, because blended learning has come as a boon in view of the time which is available at home. IT industry is closing down their shops. In Pune, I am from Pune, and in Pune, major localities which are very expensive, maybe more than 1 lakh square feet of space, they have returned it back to the leasing agency, saved maybe crores of rupees a year. Ultimately, this saving will be transferred to the customer. Ultimately, this saving can also be transferred to the employee in terms of benefits, because employee used to work for 8 hours when he used to work in the industry, at the shop, at the IT company. But today he is working for more than 12 hours from his home. And there is a mechanism being developed how they can be monitored. Industry can do it. Teachers can also do it. Only thing is that in teaching, there is a lot of creative activity, creative interactivity. Teacher is responsible. Therefore, teacher should use this freedom to redesign, to rethink and redesign the entire process of how to impart this in a more effective manner, for which I think technology is not important. Mindset is more important. The 4 parts which we have seen in earlier slide, these are more important. You need to make your teaching learning personalized, mastery based, designed high expectation for the students, and students should take ownership. If student cannot take ownership, teaching cannot happen. I have seen 12 standard classes, 10 standard classes going on online. Students are starting their mobile phone in their bedrooms and sleeping. Parents are thinking by paying 50,000 rupees or 1 lakh rupees of fees to this online training providers that our child is studying in his study room or bedroom. It's not happening. And at the end of it, when assessment is happening, intermittent assessment is happening, the results are not good. Why? Engagement was not there. Student, everywhere engagement is the issue. In your institute also, if you are a principal, if you are head of the department, engagement is the issue. And one of the best example of engaging people is army. There is no war, still the army is engaged. I always ask this question to the brigadiers and higher echelons of officers of army when I meet them, that how do you engage people when there is no work? And that is the challenge they face. They say, sir, this is the only challenge we need to address when a young boy enters into the army, that there is no war, but we need to engage him and prepare him for the war, which can happen anytime. Look at this situation. A teacher has to look at the similar situation, that a child is to be prepared for learnability. Engagement of child is important, and that can only happen when student himself owns the goals that he has designed for himself, for which teacher works as a facilitator and teacher works as an initiator by way of training him on what is the importance of designing a goal for his career, designing a goal for his semester, designing a goal for his life, being a happy person or a happy citizen. So basically, blended learning is a extrapolated model of flipped classroom. I think most of you must be aware of what is flipped classroom. Flipped classroom is all about flipping the classroom. Flipping the classroom means don't do this kind of oratory exercises for which you are very good at in the classroom, thinking that the children are learning. Children are not learning. Children know how to fetch marks. They are happy at that. They want you to come and go, spend 1 hour time for your happiness and give them attendance. That's all. Most of the time I have seen classroom sessions are like that. Students go to classroom because administrators make it compulsory that the attendance minimum standards are 75%, 80%, 85%, and so on. To avoid the wrath of the parents, child comes to the class, sits absent-mindedly many a times. Many students come with their own worries which are happening at their home. Many students have their own mental construct as worries which are not realistic. All such kind of mix of students are sitting across in the classroom in front of the teacher, and teacher conducts his session beautifully with his oratory skills, thinking that he has taught so well. And then at the end of it, when the assessment starts, only 10%, 15% students are crossing the benchmarking limit, and there becomes a problem. That becomes a problem. Therefore, we need to understand this concept of flipped classroom. In flipped classroom, it's a beginning of mastery-based education, where teacher goes at the side and students enter in the forefront as a performer. Students perform maybe without teacher, maybe in front of the teacher. Students perform for the knowledge that they have been given. Students perform for the skills they have been given as their signposts of performance. That's all. Many a times prerequisite knowledge is assessed by the teacher. If a group is having prerequisites in terms of knowledge, suppose I am teaching triple integration and the boy knows double integration very well, then I will say to him that the same concept you need to apply in the triple integration. Go ahead and solve these 5 problems of triple integration. It is assumed that the child will assemble with the like-minded friends in peer groups and solve these problems and come back to the teacher. That is the way mastery-based education can be practiced in a flipped classroom, where in the flipped classroom, classrooms are not the classrooms, but they are activity centers. Interventions by the teachers are intermittent, not more than 15 to 20 minutes, to explain a concept and to give them problems, projects, and assignments, and they are allowed to break into the groups. And that is where the question of campus for their learnability ambience comes into picture. Campus should be designed in such a fashion that flipped classroom is a possibility, where every corner is designed or is being designed looking at the learning needs of the children. Therefore, children can use any corner, any canteen room, any small room, or any garden place, or any porches to carry out their learning, because that is one of the fun activity for them. And at the side by side, they are also learning the concept, and maybe they are having total freedom. They work more professionally, because professionalism, what professionalism, nothing but, as I said, work unsupervised and later on certified that the job was done correctly. There is a more pride into themselves to certify that the job was done by them without anyone's intervention, no one being supervised, and that pride they share again back to the teacher. And there is a joyous activity, there is a relationship between the teacher and the students which starts building. That is more important. I will come back to that point slowly, where learning is not important but relationship is more important. Basically, what is to be done in classrooms can be shifted anywhere else, including home. And what was happening in home earlier is to be shifted in the classroom. So I can say it is a flipped classroom. So in the flipped classroom, teacher used to intervene and give some task. Student used to go away and segregate themselves over the campus or at home or anywhere else and solve the problem and come back to the teacher to brief on the successes or failures of their problem or their outcomes. In the blended learning mode, it works in a reverse fashion. What was happening in home will now happen in classrooms. What was happening in home? Small problems given by the teacher, assignments given by the teacher, small projects given by the teacher, and students work in group or individually at home. But now that activity will happen in classroom, in tutorials, by way of tutorials, in a supervised way by the teacher. And as far as basic teaching is concerned, it will happen in an online mode, the way we are conducting now, possibly by a recorded video of a teacher given to student by some media, maybe WhatsApp, maybe Facebook, maybe some other social media, maybe just on a college website, if a learning framework is designed and installed, such as nowadays they use Moodle or say WordPress. Like WordPress has a framework known as Learn Press. Likewise, Joomla also has Joomla Guru. All those things people can use to make a learning framework available to children. But no harm in using WhatsApp, no harm in using Facebook, no harm in using YouTube. You can still have a controlled groups and controlled resources shared with the students, because you need to look at the constraints in the students' homes, their bandwidth, their devices, their time. Maybe somebody is living in a chal means a congested place where many people stay, and it's really a difficult task to at least lead a human life there. And then your student is staying there and you are expecting too much from him. So you need to understand all these constraints when you are giving them. And therefore, blended learning is a sort of flipped classroom, wherein a flipped classroom, whatever was happening outside the classroom is now happening in online mode for you, in a blended learning mode. And what was happening in the houses, in the homes or other places where students used to gather for project, students used to solve problems on their own, will happen in a supervised way by the teacher, in front of the teacher. This is essentially is blended learning. What a teacher should do: teacher should use this extra autonomy given to him most creatively. How we can do that? Think over it. Think over every student as a different entity, and think of a plan that how can I make this child learn the concept which I want to teach to attain the standards which university wants to have. So this is a three-way learning mechanism. University wants something, you are giving it to the child wants it in a different way. You need to think on this process. Every child is a different child. Every child is a human being. He is not a machine. You are also not a machine. So as a human being, you are transferring your skills to the child with a channel of emotions. Please remember, channel of emotions and feelings. If it is not there, learning cannot happen. This is not my statement. This is a statement of good researchers done maybe around 100 years ago. But still we are yet to look at teaching as a activity of feelings and emotions. So therefore, your role is to be creative and be ready to take some risks. Suppose you are working on your hobby. What you do? You always take risks. More the risk you take in your hobby, more joy, more happiness you generate. Yes or no? And what are those risks? Those risks are small risks. These are actually not risk, but the experiments that you do. No one is going to comment on you, whether you are a failure, whether you are a successful person. So go into a hobby mode. Try to own your failures. Be prepared for failures and then take risks. But with a goal that I want to develop every child for the learning that I have designed for him. That learning is some part of Bloom's level it is addressing. As far as Bloom's level, whether it has addressed the Gaussian curve of assessment or not, this is another part of story. To address the Gaussian curve, whether it has a mix of formative assessment and summative assessment, it is a third part of story. And everyone is looking at you, and you feel that, and everyone is not giving respect also. If you look at a teacher, that for many such activities that he is conducting, he is not getting proper respect in community and in the institute. We need to bring back this respect by our own efforts, because you are the most important person on the earth. I'm a person who turned as a trainer but was a teacher. I always think I must have done some sin in my last birth. That is why God has put me in a training mode from a teaching mode. Teaching is such a pious activity that I am training all the cadres of government or say corporates. And when I look at them, I find these fellows must have got taught by some teachers in some schools, in some colleges, and what must have happened to them. The entire cadres of government and corporates, they also have some gaps, and these gaps are created either in their homes or in their institutes. So therefore, as a if God wants to design a community, rather, who will be the main agent of God as far as designing community is concerned? I think he will be a teacher, because teacher will help him to build a community, a design a community, and that is how we are playing our role. We are not teaching applied mechanics. We are not teaching electrical engineering. We are not teaching electromagnetics. We are not teaching theory of machines. We are not teaching some textile engineering subject. we are building a career of a child by developing him for a appropriate character strength. Alongside, we give him knowledge, skills, and the attitude as may be desired for that role. Maybe we are building a police officer, his role demands something else in attitude, skills, and knowledge. Maybe we are building a designer engineer, his skills, knowledge, and attitude inventory may be different, but we are directly or indirectly giving all those because we are the designer of the community. That is the important role we need to take upon us, though somebody is not giving us or somebody is not respecting us. But one day will come in your career, you will see to it that you get a lot of respect in the community because you are the one who have contributed in changing the community for better by developing a new generation which was much better than what was earlier. Anyway, so be creative and be ready to take some risks to personalize education for a student. There are many models of blended learning. I think some of the models your earlier resource persons must have shared with you. Station rotation model, flexible model, lab rotation model. But if you look at the current situation wherein you need to go online from home, students will be online from home. You may think of flexible model as well, but I'm just trying to introduce you station rotation model. What is a station rotation model? In station rotation model, students start with an online module, which you know you are going to do it very soon. Then move to teacher for a teacher-led instruction, which you are not sure whether they will come to you or if at all they come to you, when they will come to you. But I will appeal to the principals, administrators, and management that try to prepare a plan that whenever the lockdown on education is lifted, lockdown on education and training is still in vogue, possibly it will be lifted in September, possibly it will be lifted in October. Till that time, only online will happen. The moment it is lifted, we should have a plan. Start preparing for that plan. What kind of plan? If I have 60 students in my class, that means I have got 15 benches in my classroom. If I want to maintain the social distance, can I bring 15 students in the classroom? Answer is yes, engineering design wise. So try to design a classroom only for 15 students without changing anything. So online classes will happen in a blended mode, but every day 15 different students will come to the classroom for the second part of the education, which is activity-based education, which is a part of the flipped classroom, which was earlier happening in the homes, now will happen in front of the teacher. That's the precious time. And this precious time, how teacher can spend, this I want to inform to you. So there are three parts of session rotation model. Number one, online instruction. Number two, teacher intervened instruction. And number three, assignments and projects. That means, say such kind of online instruction happens, say 20 minutes or say 30 minutes. After that, they come to classroom, based upon what was taught, they have prepared themselves to solve something. Teacher is giving them an assignment to work in front of them. But now, this particular time which a child is spending with the teacher, maybe once in a month or once in 15 days, because he has to come in turns, 15 students in one day. So his next turn will come after 4 days. So therefore, this is a very precious time for every teacher. Students do not know whether it is precious or not. They are happy because they are at home. Most of the time they are at home. It is now teacher's skill to find out what's happening in students' mind. Leave alone their skills, their knowledge, and their attitude. What is that they are thinking about this particular teaching activity, the way they are happening? And that is why what is important is that students should be able to take ownership. It is the mastery-based education. The concept of mastery-based education and student ownership is that they have total control over speed of getting education. No one is forcing them that after 2 weeks there will be a test. They can say to the teacher that, sir, now I'm prepared for the first chapter, you can conduct my test. But due to the interaction, teacher himself knows that yes, this child looks as if he has developed a growth mindset for this subject and he is keen to learn this concept. So I know that he knows this much in the subject, but I can give him some questions based on his ability to test him so that he is also satisfied. But most of the testing is already over in a formative way, in an interactive way, inspection way, weeding out way is only remaining, just to give him a satisfaction that he has cleared the test. So therefore, these three parts you should focus. I'm not giving you any prescription again. These are the three parts you need to design to your satisfaction the way you want. The moment I will be prescriptive, you will come to know that there is a huge task every teacher needs to do. And then you will ask yourself, is that what I have been paid for? Is that what is my engagement criteria for the institute? Engagement is more important. Family setup and engagement with company, it has worked very nicely. It has saved money. Likewise, you need to be engaged with the students. Student engagement is more important, but what you are responsible is, you are responsible for these three parts. You have to develop the second part very well, that is your own intervention whenever it is happening. We are going to that part. What is the ideal student? What's happening in students' mind? We have seen what is the theory of blended learning, but what is happening in students' mind? The four big ideas teachers should keep in mind is that student ownership should happen, personalized learning should happen, and mastery-based education should happen. This you should look for whenever you are assessing a student. If you are assessing a student for strength of material, don't look at Young's modulus. Look at whether he is having a student ownership, whether he is owning the education, whether he is having a ownership in his own learning and learnability, whether he has developed a plan for his personalized learning, whether he has set his goals. He knows that he is not good at mathematics, but he has to clear this subject. Whether he has set the target for himself, to what level he can go deeper in this subject with the help of the peer group and with the help of the student. You try to assess this first, then you go for Young's modulus. That is okay. And then whether he is practicing the mastery-based education. Last and most important part is relationship. The first three parts are ingrained part of blended education. They are ingrained part to be formally, informally, directly, indirectly, to be trained or otherwise and informed to the student that this is what is important for you. You have to own the learning. You have to personalize your learning plan. Personalizing means setting your own speed. Mastery-based learning means unless you master the concept, core concept of the subject, you will not go ahead. Unless you train your child for this, you are not into blended learning. You are only into technology intervened learning, which is not blended learning. Technology intervened learning doesn't assure you for the expected desired outcomes. But blended learning, by way of these three things, engagement through ownership, personalized learning through speed, self-speed, control over speed, and mastery-based education, he will not be allowed to move ahead, or he will himself not move ahead unless he has mastered the core concept. Once these three things are ingrained in your teaching and learning, most important part, which I feel as a teacher, because I also have some experience as a teacher. I was a teacher for around 24 years before I moved to training. And now I have converted myself as a trainer into faculty training and so on. And therefore, my own area of concern is relationships. Anna Freud was one of the researchers whom I will quote later on. Rather, let us finish this side. Student ownership. What if student give what if we give paddles of the boat to the students? You are paddling the boat for the student to take him to the other side of the bank of the river. What if you hand over the paddle himself to the student? That means we are giving ownership to the student. Think of the situation. Try to only assess his pre-training or pre-learning, prerequisites of learning, whether he is good at that. Suppose we are going to conduct a titration experiment. He wants a pipette to be brought and he is holding the pipette, right? He knows how to remove the parallax error. This is the prerequisite for chemistry first experiment. Then tell him, you do the experiment. This is what I am desiring. This is the catalyst. This is the way you are going to do the test on litmus paper, and this is what I am expecting from you, the observations. I am going out, you come with the results, done with it. Because you as a teacher only assessed for the prerequisites and given him freedom to own his own learning process the way he wants. He may commit mistakes, let him. But at the end, you tell him that this is what is to be achieved. How to put students to self-directed work? Can we do that? It's a big challenge. As a teacher, can I put my students into a self-directed work? See, whenever a student comes before you, just by looking at him, can you not find out whether he's in the growth mindset or not? Whether his learnability is high or not? You can. His face is speaking of his grit. His face itself is speaking loud and clear about his curiosity. The person who is high on grit and curiosity can learn anything. And you are very much sure that this man is a careerist man. But there is a huge group in the classroom who is not showing the right amount of grit, right amount of curiosity. They are your people. They are God's people. And you are a God. You need to take them nearer to you. And you need to teach them how to go about self-directed learning. You need to train them and see to it them perform that. Yes, they do it in front of you, and then you leave them for the home learning, for the blended learning. This is how you are going to spend time with students when they come for a contact hour training. I have marked something in red. Before that, there is one point: how to empower them to seek help. Students don't seek help of teacher. You should empower them. Empowerment is not an easy task. Before empowerment comes motivation, and before motivation comes aspiration. If the person is not aspired for his life, for his career, we cannot motivate him. So you need to follow this link. We need to find out his aspirations. What is his aspiration of life? What is he good at? What was he good at? Where was the missing link? Can I motivate him? You need to invest in building relationship with that child, so that he comes up and feels empowered and seeks your help whenever there is a problem. And this is a very big task. Therefore, I have said teacher has to become guide on the side than the sage on the stage. Most of us, I was one like that, because I was little better at speaking and teaching. So I used to go as a tiger in the classroom and roar aloud about my skills. I used to teach electromagnetics, I used to teach microprocessors, advanced operating system. All those subjects I used to teach, and I was very proud that I'm a very good teacher. But are they good learners? I have never bothered. And that is the biggest problem. So only one thing you should do to be an effective blended learning teacher is that you should be better a guide on the side than the sage on the stage. Ensure skills of self-direction and ownership in students. Ensure skills of self-direction and ownership in students. Then only go in the classroom. Then only start your blended learning program. 0th program in every institute, in A.G. Patil Institute also, should be to prepare students for their self-direction and ownership. If this happens, 90% students, if they succeed, that they are self-directed students, they own their learning because they have created their own speed and they are happy with it. They say that this is my speed, and then they move to the mastery based education. Then you can say that I can teach them anything through blended learning. It doesn't matter whether YouTube works or it doesn't work. It doesn't matter whether the WhatsApp video is getting downloaded or they have to burn some midnight because in the bandwidth is little better. No, nothing to worry, because no one is going to complain. They are self-directed people owning their learning and in a mastery-based education. Personalized learning, getting away from fixed speed and fixed curriculum. In your every class session, 1/3 already know what you are teaching. They don't want you. 1/3 may be totally lost because they don't bother whether you are there or you are not there. But only 1/3, remaining 1/3, your teaching matches with their learning. That means 2/3 of the students don't need you. One third, they don't need you because they know it everything. But one third, you have already written them off. They are slowly being seen shifting their benches to the back benches. And one fine morning, you see that they are not coming to our class because because they have lost interest. We have not created interest. We have not created relationship. We have not personalized our teaching plan for their learning plan. We have not ensured that they are self-directed. Their goals can be little lower, but they have to be self-directed. Once they are self-directed, they should be professional in learning. Once they are professional in learning, if there is an impediment, there is a gap, there is a hindrance, they should be eager to seek your help or somebody else's help. That means we are motivating them to seek the help. That is empowerment. Everyone is in their own proximal zone of development, but teacher is unaware because he is going as a sage on the stage, trying to blast out his teaching as a small capsule, giving his oratory skills to the maximum level, thinking that he is the only good orator and he can convince children by way of those skills. But it doesn't happen. Everyone is in their own proximal zone of development, but teacher has to be aware of this. Possibly he can be aware of this by conducting a questionnaire like Richard Felder's questionnaire on learning styles, so that he can start building relationship. It's a one way, one method of getting in touch with the student to inform. Once a child is informed that you are a visual learner, he will keep aside that visual learning, but he will see that my teacher is a god. He knows what works well as far as learning is concerned. It's a building block for building relations with the children. Technology holds a promise to do more personalization, of course, for the obvious reason. Technology, using technology, we are giving some resources already to the student, and we are elevating the teacher of his responsibilities, because once recorded lecture is always a recorded lecture. He can use it anytime. But when a personalized interaction is happening, he can use it more effectively because he doesn't have to teach. And therefore, technology holds a promise to more personalization, a blended learning approach. It has to be mastery based learning. Students are like cheese on the other outer side, but inside there are cheese holes. Everyone looks similar. We need to find out what are the holes in them. Who should do it? A teacher should do it. How he can do it? By personally interacting with them. Therefore, motivate them to self-directed learning with ownership to bridge the gaps. Next step is to facilitate them to master a core concept, mastery-based education, or gaps, irrespective of time. Don't focus on time, focus on concepts. Be prepared for any time testing whenever student is ready, and not when teacher is ready. You don't announce any schedule that this time test will be conducted. Let there be groups. You can give you 3-4 times. Maybe some of them will go, maybe some will be left over. Give them some more time. Tell them, okay, we will meet couple of times and find out. And during that interventions, you are already finding out how much he has learned. Celebrate the learning and play down the failures. Even if he say 1 + 1 = 2, celebrate it, because he was not knowing it earlier. Don't say that itna bhi nahi aata hai aapko. They never say that. Never use but when you are counseling with the student. That but is a problem word. You will say that you have done this well, but you are not doing this to my standards. Never use but. You may use yet, in the sense that you have done this well, but the child himself will say, sir, I am not able to do what you want. You can say, yet you are not able to do, but I am confident you will do it. Today you are not able to do it, yet you are not able to. What is this happening? It's a positive frame of thoughts being interacted with the student. Underpinning assumption is that there is a relation. We are going to come to that point. Relationships are most important. Anna Freud, who was a daughter of Sigmund Freud, a doyen of psychology in entire world, has done a research on teacher psychology. She says there is one of the important point which I have learned through one of her presentations. Of course, that time presentations were not there. It's a story of 1915 or so. But today, the research is being discussed. And one of the slides which I have seen, wherein she says that teacher communicate with the student without communicating anything. What does this mean? This means students look at the teacher in terms of a relational role model. They try to relate themselves with the teacher. Look at a kid going to primary school. Whom he respects more? Teacher ने कहा है ऐसा नहीं करना चाहिए. Teacher says no, that's why it is no. For the first 3 months of his life, mama says no, that's why it is no. For a few months later on, papa says no, therefore it is no. Later on in the school, teacher says no. Who is a role model? Teacher is a role model. Because mentally, maybe teacher has not established a relationship, but mentally, every child is looking at a teacher as a role model by way of establishing a relationship. And Anna Freud says this is how teacher communicates with the students without communicate. What is happening in his thinking is already communicated. This is the way Anna Freud has tried to prove in her thesis that teaching is a mental activity. Teaching is an activity of relationship. Teaching is not a cognitive activity of Bloom's domain, but it is a affective domain activity in total where feelings and emotions play a predominant role. This particular part, every teacher should note, should write it down, and should give undue importance in their teaching life henceforth. Then only they will blossom very well in the teacher for the respect that they aspire for. Arthur Jersild is another researcher who goes little bit ahead. He says that every teacher should find meaning and purpose of his own life. If teacher is happy, he will communicate happiness to the students, and for which teacher should find out what is the meaning and purpose of his own life. And he gives a clue. Meaning and purpose of anybody's life can be found if he practices compassion. Compassion means try to analyze your feelings. I'm compassionate with you means what? I value your feelings. If you are angry, I can understand why you are angry. If you feel dejected, I am mentally connected with you and I know why you are feeling dejected. Arthur Jersild says every teacher needs to be compassionate, but being compassionate is not an easy task. Just please pardon me for using a small couplet in Marathi language here. One of the great poets of Marathi, Kusumagraj, at one time, he says that जे जे जगी जगते तया karuna kara माझे म्हणा. That means what? Whatever is being lived in this world, every creature is living his life. Every human being is living his life for these strains of feelings that he comes up with. Every feeling is being lived. He says that, oh God, give me that power to be compassionate with every feeling so that I become a God. Ultimately, who is a God? God is the one who can live each strain of the feeling. And therefore, being compassionate or practicing compassion, Arthur says, teacher should be compassionate with himself first. That means what? For the next 2 years, next 6 months, next 1 year, every teacher should try to find out what feelings that comes to him. When he is angry, when he feels dejected, when he feels happy, when he is ecstatic, when he is joyful, when he is low in his feeling, when he is quarrelsome, every feeling that comes to him, every emotion that comes to him, he tries to understand, he tries to analyze his own feelings. In Buddhist psychology, this is known as metacognition. Metacognition means cognition of my own cognition. That means what I am feeling, I am trying to analyze my own feelings so that I can be compassionate with myself. So all the feelings I am leaving myself. I am getting angry. Third party, I am doing analysis. Why is that kind of anger came to me in that particular situation? What's happening? I am trying to be compassionate with me. Why? Next time a student is showing anger in front of you, you are smiling to yourself because that feeling you have lived already. That is being compassionate. If you are not compassionate, you cannot be a teacher. That's what Arthur Jersild said. Being compassionate helps you to find out meaning and purpose of your own life. Okay, let's keep few slides and end it here in next 5-10 minutes. Okay, I'll take a call myself and I'll do it. So therefore, a role of emotions and feelings is more predominant in teacher's life to cater to the student's need, because every need a child is coming to, a child himself is coming in your classroom is because of his needs. What are the needs? Parents have sent him. Why parents have sent him? Because they want to invest money. Why they want to invest money in education? Because they want the child to make a career. Why the child wants to make a career as far as parents think? Because some of the difficulties in the family can be alleviated by the career of the child when he grows up. That is how parents think. Society also thinks that society's worries will be alleviated by the leaders AG Patil Institute gives, because they will solve their problems. Parents also think things in the same way. And how these needs are arisen? Every need, your own need, any need, if you look at it, has got a background of emotions. When the emotions are getting repeated, they get into flared up emotions, and they get converted into feelings. And once a hardened feeling is generated, that gets converted into needs, and those needs are sitting in front of you as a children. Why don't you look them as needs and emotions and feelings? That is a beginning of a good culture. Unnecessarily we become police persons. We try to we try to do policing on our children. We try to find out their mistakes. Every small mistake a teacher tries to find out, he will try to take him right and left. But any small activity that he does in benevolence, a good joyous activity, he will never get a immediate certification from the teacher, because teacher needs to be looked upon as a pedagogue. A pedagogue means he should have a serious face. A serious face means he should only practice discipline. Discipline means there has to be order, and order and discipline means no emotions, no feelings. Teacher should come out of this. If you want to be compassionate, you should respect your own feelings, you should respect your own emotions. There is one French philosopher, I always quote him, Alfred North Whitehead. He defines culture. Possibly this definition will help you to get more insights about relationships. He says a culture is nothing but it is a purely an activity of thoughts. It is the way you respond to feelings of others. It is the way you respond to feeling and beauty. If you develop a habit of responding properly to feeling and beauty, you are culturally the best. He further says, all that education that you gather in your life is important only to make a first step in the professional life, to secure a first job. That degree is important. Thereafter, every day in your life, your culture is important, your degree is not important. Where culture means how you respond to somebody else's feeling and beauty. If you are strong in the way you respond to beauty and feelings of others, then you can achieve the heights of an artist or a depth of a philosopher. There also you have got two choices. My appeal to all teachers: one day you are going to retire. After retirement, still you have a career left. But society will come back to those who gave to society throughout their career. And you are the one who are starting to give the society by way of blended learning models to develop the careers of their children. And when you do it, overdo it, and keep on doing it, you will develop a competence. You are already a compassionate, because that is a prerequisite. You have found meaning and purpose of your own life. Even after your retirement, community will come back to you and ask you that, sir or madam, you still have lot of service left in you. We want it. Give it to us. And any service anybody gives to anyone, he tries to fulfill the requirements by way of compensating those services. And that is how our professional life we have spent, and that is more important. This is the importance of relationships in the teaching and learning, and that is how you should focus upon your own social and emotional learning. how to start in relationship. Basically, if even if you can't start being compassionate, you don't know what is meaning and purpose of your life, I strongly recommend you read Martin Seligman's happiness criteria, which is PERMA, PERMA. There you will get more about how to find the meaning and purpose of your. It's a simple formula. If you don't know all these things, you just need to make your students know that you care for them. They should know that my teacher cares. Even if I commit a strongest, harshest mistake in life, who is there to protect me? My teacher will protect me because he cares for me. You can go for one-to-one mentoring relationship. Mentoring is a structured relationship in which you always follow a mentor. But mentoring usually is a relationship between a professions which are not attached to you. That means he is not your student, a student of production engineering being mentored by electrical engineering. But it's a structured relationship. A structured relationship means you try to get his background, many things he shares with you, his emotional background he shares with you, his family background, and you try to guide him based upon your wisdom that you have cultivated out of the experience about of the life that you have lived so far. That is the structured relationship. There are courses, if you find on Coursera or Udemy, how to do mentoring. Actually, it is a structured exercise. Usually corporates do it, but nothing wrong in doing it at the institute level. Teachers should invest in relationship with the students. This doesn't happen mostly in many campuses. Therefore, if you want to change to blended learning, if you want to focus on the outcomes, see National Board of Accreditation, once they design the criteria for the outcome-based education, that is the end of the story. That doesn't mean Bloom's taxonomy is a god. I will say that Bloom's taxonomy is not a god, but affective domain is a god. Relationship is a god. That is the way you are going to reach out to the student. That is the way you are going to develop their character. I had a few slides for how to convert the campus for blended learning, but anyway, that time is over, and it's better we stop here. Yes, I have crossed around 6 minutes more, but I'll spend few minutes on look at your child, that it is a fractured character which has come to you. Like you were also a fractured character when you are developing yourself. Possibly today also you are not a completely strength character. So try to analyze your character. I will suggest, I will show you one site. Go to this site to find your own character strengths. This is a free survey you can do. The name of this site is viacharacter.org. And this is also a site which is catered by Martin Seligman, designed by Martin Seligman out of his 10-year-long exercise or research on find out character strength of every person to lead a fulfilled life. Fulfilled life means from birth till death. When you die, your death should be a peaceful death. Your death should not be a disturbing or violent death. When your death is planned as a peaceful death, you can say that you have led a life which was satisfying life, and which was a fulfilled life. And for that purpose, you need to practice the happiness criteria of Martin Seligman, for which the character strengths are important. Usually, character is given to you by your family, but then you may discuss, you may go through some research on these character strengths, as we are running short of time. This particular part I will stop here itself, but I will strongly appeal to all teachers that to be compassionate, to find their meaning and purpose of life. I'm giving you a small blueprint kind of activity. You can read little bit of on PERMA, PERMA, where P stands for positive emotions, E stands for engagement, R stands for relations, M stands for meaning and purpose of life, and A stands for accomplishment. This is an acronym which Martin Seligman, who was a chairperson of American Psychologist Association for a long time, alive today, maybe around 80, 82-year-old. He is a preacher of PERMA as a researcher in happiness, and he is instrumental in designing a VIA Institute on Character. An institute on character. It's a virtual institute. where VIA stands for values in action. What values are required to lead a fulfilled and happy life? And these are the set of 24 characters, and you will find your own character strengths by conducting a online survey. There is one survey which is free. I appeal all the teachers to do this survey so that they can prepare themselves for better interactivity with the students. I'm afraid if my lecture is not taken in the spirit in which I wanted to convey the message to you, possibly many of you must have hoped that I will speak more on Moodle, more on Google Meet or Microsoft Teams, and how to select tools like LearnTrace or Guru Joomla, how to convert my learning into a animated class or some YouTube channel settings and all those things. But that is not important for me. For me, blended learning is all about preparing teacher for blended learning by way of mastery based education, personalized learning, and student ownership and engagement. That is how we should develop students first. Don't give blended training modules, blended learning modules. If we don't develop our students, we don't develop our students for these three parts of blended learning. And once you do that, see the wonders. Possibly your institute will be seen as a institute starkingly uh, different than the neighboring institutes as far as uh, meeting the performance criteria and the expected educational outcomes as may be designed by council and accreditation agencies and so on. Create a campus which has got learning ambience. Create a campus which has got high learnability. Only classrooms are not the places which are where learning happens. Looking at the current pandemic situation, and if this persists beyond maybe next 1 year or 1.5 year, then students are not going to come in the campus. That means less students will visit campus. That means more learning will happen from home. That means only 15-20% students will be there on campus because of social distancing norms or other norms as well. So when you look at such kind of situation, so it's an opportunity for the managers or the promoters of the institute to convert the campus into a campus with high learnability. I will highly recommend for all the participants and the administrators to go through at least first and second chapter of Peter Senge's book on fifth discipline, The Art of Learning Organization. Every organization, Peter Senge says, should be converted into a learning organization. Only those organizations will survive in future who have converted themselves into learning organizations. Therefore, you will find in corporate there are designations which are coming up, not as a HR head, but as a learning head. And they are employing PhDs, ex-professors as learning unit heads because they have understood the importance of uh, encouraging learnability in their campuses. What about us? We are thick in the business of learning, and we are not. Our classrooms are old stereotypes. It reminds me of 1977 old song by Pink Floyd, where if you could search on YouTube, you will get this song. We don't need no education. The children say to school leaders that we don't need this education because the kind of design that you have in the classroom, the kind of benches that you have, you are sage on the stage and we are subjects sitting on the benches. That means you are superior. We don't want this feeling. The feeling itself shows that we are subordinates. So the song goes like this: we don't need no education, we don't need no thoughts control, lots of hassles in the classroom, teacher leave us kids alone. So before this happens, I think we should change our classrooms. Before this happens, we should change our campuses, and they should be the Peter Senge's most learnability driven campuses so that blended learning will proliferate like anything in these campuses. If you look at IITs, IIMs, all these campuses are learnable campuses where learning can happen at any nook and corner of the campus. You find students interacting, learning is ensured. So this is the time wherein we should think that this pandemic is a boon for us as education planners, and we will convert our campuses. It doesn't require a lot of money, but it requires thoughtfulness so that tomorrow when the child comes in the classroom, I appeal to all the teachers. When the child, whenever he is going to come to your classroom, whenever he is going to come to your institute, plan your institute in such a fashion that his every second, his every minute, his every hour is being planned, because he is going to spend less time with you. Let us plan that. What he will, what he will see in the canteen, what he will see in the classroom, what he will see in the principal's office, what changes he will see in the institute, whether those changes will contribute to his learning, whether his stay in the campus will be a best stay which he has ever experienced, maybe by way of interaction with the clerical staff, those who are very courteous, everything has gone online, maybe fees he need not pay by cash, or whatever things that he, whatever services that he needs, you have converted them into a desired experiences that a student contemplates, looking at what he sees on YouTube, what he sees on Facebook, what he sees at good peer group experiences, or whatever his imaginary desires. Let us fulfill those. When you make him a joyous person at a young stage, whatever you demand by way of learning, he will be more than happy to give it back to you. If you want to make him work in a clumsy institute, in an institute where everyone is after discipline and order, somebody is shouting at somebody else at every corner of the institute, do you think learning will happen? Learning is an activity of creativity. Edward de Bono says creativity can happen only when there is a freedom, and freedom means there is no shouting. And freedom, after that, the second skill Edward de Bono says is you should get provoked, you should get angry to the tune that I should know this. A teacher's role is to provoke the child to that anger so that he thinks that he should have those skills. I think that should be the culmination of blended learning as far as teacher's role in any institute is concerned. My this last part was as an input to be given to the institute planners. Give teacher a full freedom and empowered feeling to risk something in his teaching style and methodology by way of what he has learned from this training program. If that happens, only then campuses will change. Otherwise, this will remain another STTP sponsored by AICT. I'm sure I am courageous enough to speak like this in front of AG Patil Institute, because I'm confident that AG Patil will not take my comments lightly and will take it very seriously to take every input given by Mrs. Patwardhan, Mrs. Chauhan, or Mr. Sahasrabuddhe, who have contributed to this workshop, and will follow all the tips so that this institute becomes better. It becomes learnable institute and students become skilled. Not only that, they are leading their life happily when they go out of the institute. If you follow what Arthur Churchill said, equip teacher for their social and emotional skills, students are automatically developed. And thank you once again for giving me a chance to speak to you as a part of valedictory message to you all.